What's up, St. Theresa? Welcome to this series of St. Theresa Roundtable Conversations. I'm your host, Chase Krause, joined here with Father Larry, the one and only. Father Larry, how's it going?
And glad to be here. Thank you, Chase.
Yeah, so...
Welcome to my domain.
Yeah, that's right, with the fancy new bookshelves and everything. Looks great. And I don't know if you can see this or not, but there's a fire going right there, and it's very warm.
We're fireside chats with Father Larry today.
That's right. All right, so Father Larry, so this series, me and you were talking about it, and we wanted to discuss liturgy. That was kind of the thing we decided would be kind of a cool conversation to have, just for people to know, because I think it's a bit of a vague topic, or at least not a very deeply explored topic amongst people nowadays, right?
I agree. And even the word liturgy, it's a church word. It's one of those, I call it one of those words that we just sort of dismiss. What is liturgy? And you could ask 5 people the same question, you're going to get 5 different answers.
Right.
And they might all have some aspect of correctness about it. But what most people don't understand is that the word liturgy, or which comes from the Greek liturgia, which means the work, or the work that is engaged in. That's the actual, the Greek idiom, the work that we do. And of course, this is specifically referring to worship, which is why I think in many traditions, the word liturgy's been abandoned because it tends to be equated with a format.
Yeah.
We do this, then we do this.
It's very formulaic.
Yeah, it's a formula. A formula. We're going to church where we follow a liturgy, in other words, which is not what it was intended to be. And it brings up the larger question of what it is we do when we come together at Mass, at worship.
And so I guess, because the word, like you were saying, the word liturgy comes from that Greek word liturgia, but the church didn't invent that word, right? Because I remember when I was first studying this, back when I was doing my undergrad and master's, examples that some professors would give would be like, a rich politician in town, his work would be like building a bridge for the people to use or whatever, but the people would participate in building it for the people, right? So it was a work that the people were doing, sponsored by some rich dude usually, but it was for themselves or for the larger community.
It was, a corporate endeavor for the welfare of the body. In other words, the corpora being the body. You're exactly right. But we've lost a little of that sense, I think, over centuries. Nowadays, if you say, what's the work of the people when we're talking about church? And they're immediately their mind's going to go to ministry or some kind of an apostolic action. When in reality, it's not. It's about our oblation, our gift of ourselves, the work of giving ourselves entirely over to God.
And so do you think part of that is, the change of culture, post-Reformation, like adding pews and the idea that you go to Mass to receive rather than to work?
Oh no, wait a minute. There, I think you've hit something on the head there. We go to receive, and we do. We receive when we go to Mass, when we attend worship. But we don't go there primarily to get something, and that's something I've noticed over the years, and I hear it all the time. People say, Father, I just don't get anything out of Mass. Or my kids don't get anything out of the Mass. Or it doesn't speak to me, or it doesn't meet my needs. In other words, what we're hearing is a consumerist's concern about worship. And that's just the opposite of what worship initially was. Our idea of worship goes way back to Israel, ancient Israel. What was worship? Worship was sacrifice. You came to bring something of yourself, something of great value, and you offered it to God. And it was the temple, when you came to the temple at certain times, you would bring a sacrificial offering. Now, it might be, depending on, it was very regulated. It might be a grain offering, some aspect of what most people were involved in agriculture of some sort. So it could be some kind of produce of the field. Or it might be a firstling, they called it, one of the firstborn of a flock. Usually it had to be, as we would read in the story of Exodus, that has to be a spotless, has to be a pure offering. You couldn't take the runt of the litter and say, okay, that belongs to God, all right? I'm going to take the best and God gets what's left over. No, it had to be the best, the spotless lamb, the representing that, the idea that only the best of who and what we are goes to God, and recognizing that God's going to take care of us. It's not that we're giving up something and we'll suffer thereby. It's we're giving up something so that we benefit from God's grace.
Which is why I guess the whole burnt offering was such a big deal. And like you had to done goof really hard for that one because, for example, I think it's hard for a lot of people because we don't live on farms nowadays. Didn't grow up around farms. I know it's really sank in for me. I have a few friends who they own they raise cattle, right? So they raise cattle to go sell to slaughter. And they only have a couple bulls though. It's like 1 or 2 bulls, and those are the bulls that populate. And so in the Bible, when you hear about like a whole burnt offering of a bull, 1, you don't realize how big a bull is until you actually stand by it, and 2, you don't understand how big of a deal the sacrifice of bull was. Cows are different. Bulls are the head honcho, and the whole burnt offering is you don't eat any of it, you don't keep any of it. It's all burnt. It all goes to God. But that's a financial, like you're giving up. Part of your very wealth, right, with that kind of whole burnt offering. And so like you said, our worship and our liturgy, our sacrifice goes back to Israel. And so in the liturgy today, that whole burnt offering, 1, Jesus already accomplished it, right? But at the same time, in a way, we're called to participate in his whole burnt offering.
Right.
And I think when you look at it in that light, there's no going to mass to get something out of it because you're going to participate in the whole burnt offering of Christ, right? So I think it's so hard for people because, we want to feel good with liturgy.
Absolutely. That's the other thing that's so, I want to come away from Mass feeling different. I want to get something out of it. Whether it's the homily or the music or the readings or fellowship. And we've placed so much emphasis on that it's become what people expect. Sure. So what was once a strong sacrificial experience has now become more therapeutic.
Yeah.
Entertainment.
Well, it's like, it's Bishop Barron calls it the failed experiment of Vatican II. Not that Vatican II itself was bad, but the experiment of it where people, and it's the whole idea of when you turn the Mass inside into people focused and not God focused, you miss the mark, right? The liturgy is God focused, not people focused. Because if you're circled in on yourselves, yeah, of course you're not getting anything out of it, besides like maybe some warm fuzzies every once in a while.
I'm going to ask you this question because we're from obviously very different generations. But one thing I have noticed is, first of all, young people these days are so much smarter than we were. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's in the water, but they're getting something. Something has occurred to them in their spiritual life as Catholics that is mystifying the older generations of the church. Now, what do I mean by that? St. Mary's Cathedral downtown, for instance, has a Latin Mass, and you go there, and it's what they call the extraordinary form of the Mass, and virtually everybody that's in there would have never been alive when the extraordinary...
Right, they're all in their 20s and 30s mostly, maybe 40s.
So I asked the question, well, this isn't about nostalgia, because they never knew this. What is it they're getting through that they're not getting otherwise? And the only thing I can think of is that experience is entirely focused on God. There is nothing of me. It's all, what's the old phrase? It's not me, it's thee. And Now, while I would personally would never want to go back to Latin, I'm old enough to remember the Latin Mass, and I don't remember understanding anything, but I do understand as a young child, it was very important.
Right. And there's a sense of reverence there.
There was something very important about it. And it wasn't centered on me or my family or anybody else. We were all very focused on something that was, and I keep going back to the word important, because at that age, I really didn't know any other way to describe it. And I think back to myself, if you go to an average Mass, is it important? Yeah. Is the experience important? Is that, and I'm thinking out loud here, of course, but what I'm perceiving is that there is an understanding now with young Catholics and an emerging Catholicism that says we've been to the church where we were entertained to death, where we sang top 40 songs that were really not even good enough to be on the radio.
So bad.
We had sermons that were, if comprehensible, still didn't offer anything of substance. We were taught about endless grace, but nobody ever talked about sin. So you can see where I'm going.
Yeah, so I think, for me, so I grew up in the quote unquote life teen parish, which I'm glad we don't call ourselves that. And the same thing, yeah, you go to Mass, and we went to life teen Mass, and which I don't know what that means, but their definition was essentially they played top 40 Christian hits. I remember as a kid being entertained, right? But once I've gotten more seriously into my faith, once I've grown in my faith intellectually and hopefully spiritually, when I go to those, I've seen it done well a few times, but it's hard. And the reason I think it's hard is because for me, every single aspect of the liturgy and every single piece of music within the liturgy needs to be oriented towards a certain theme. For example, if it's communion time, it's time to receive the body, blood, soul, and divinity of Jesus Christ, we should be singing about that. I don't want to be singing about going to make a difference. You can make a difference. Go make a difference in the world. That's not, at that point of the liturgy, that's not the case. That's not appropriate. And so for me, moving forward, and my wife and I, we go to St. Mary's sometimes, and obviously we come here a lot for the weekends, and we found ourselves loving both and, Novus Ordo and the extraordinary form. Like you said, so my first experience with the extraordinary form was actually an Easter vigil, which was brutal. It was really hard because it's 3 hours of Latin, and it was beautiful in a certain sense. It was the pageantry is beautiful, right? It was gorgeous. I had no idea what was going on half the time. I had no idea what they were saying, and I was in college at that point, right? But at the same time, for my wife and I don't want to be entertained. I want to worship. And I want a sense of reverence, and I want a sense of, like you said, importance.
You want to enter into something otherworldly. Right. You want to enter into something important. I can't get that word again.
No, yeah. But I think that hits the nail on the head, though. This is important, which is why I think that I don't know, the lack of a better word, the virtue of being well dressed. I think Thomas Aquinas actually has a word for it, but I can't think of it right now. It's reflecting. Wow, this is really important. You wouldn't wear shorts and a t-shirt to, a gala, right? Or a presidential inauguration like we just had. That would be insulting to the one hosting it, right? And I know for me, that's something I have to tell myself, no, this is important. Dress well.
Or at least don't dress distractingly.
Yeah, right. And so going back to liturgy as a whole, wrapping up this first episode here. So liturgy is the work of the people. Right, it's a work that people participate in.
It's a sacrifice. We've come to give something back to God. Everything we have, it's a part of a realization of our whole life. Everything we have, everything we are is a gift from God. For 1 hour or so a week, we go back and we honor God for that. And we give thanks to God for that. Even if it hasn't gone well, we give thanks to God for that, because by that contrast, we know when it is going well.
Yeah, right.
But we've got to move beyond the consumer approach to worship. Liturgy is not about consuming. It's about building. It's about giving oblation and honor and sacrifice. And when we can reclaim that, then I believe we begin to understand how that then applies to the rest of our day.
Actually, it reminds me of a line that you would say during Mass. I wouldn't say. It's our duty and our salvation to worship you, O God.
That's in the preface every Sunday.
Yeah, it's so worship is our duty and our salvation. It's something we owe to God, and at the same time, through grace, it's also how we are saved.
Exactly.
All right, so we'll wrap it up this time, but we'll pick it up next time. So St. Theresa, thank you so much for joining us on this week's episode of St. Theresa Roundtable. Father Larry and I will be back next week to continue to discuss liturgy in a bit more detail, and we'll see you then. God bless.